ॐ नमः शिवायेति शिवं प्रपद्ये शिवप्रसीदेति शिवं प्रपद्ये शिवात् परन्नेति शिवं प्रपद्ये शिवोऽहमस्मीति शिवं प्रपद्ये. In the previous satsangas, we saw the first shloka of Shivanandalahari, where Acharya speaks about the Shiva Shakti Aikya Tattva. Then in the second shloka, Acharya says, गलन्ति शम्भो त्वच्चरितसरितः किल्बिषरजो दलन्ति धीकुल्या सरणिषु पतन्ति विजयतां दिशन्ति संसारभ्रमणपरितापोपशमनं वसन्ति मच्चेतो हृदभुवि शिवानन्दलहरी. In this shloka we can see the beautiful poetic picture that Acharya paints. And this is a theme that will repeat throughout Shivanandalahari, where Acharya paints very vivid pictures in our mind. My Guru always says, Bhavana Mandalam is very important. Bhavana Mandalam is our emotional plane, and this is where bhakti happens. And unless that is pure, then one cannot progress spiritually. Bhagavan says in the Gita, Nacha bhavayata shantihi ashantasya kutas sukham. For one who doesn't have a pure bhavana mandala, there is no shanti, there is no peace. And for one who does not have peace, there is no happiness. So if you have a pure bhavana mandala, then as you are hearing this shloka, you can meditate on what is happening here. So Acharya says, there is a wave of bliss, a Shivanandalahari, that is trickling from the river of Parameshwara's charitra. So if we take Parameshwara's charitra, all the divya gunas and all the leelas that he has done, if we take all of that as a river that is flowing and purifying the earth, from that there is a wave that is coming forward, and what that wave does is, it destroys the dust of our sin. All the sin which is accumulated, which is like dirt, it washes away all those sins. And then what it does, it comes and falls into the path, which is the streams of the intellect. So on one hand you have a stream or a river which is the charitra of Parameshwara, a very purifying stream. Then we have another stream that is running parallelly, which is our own intellect. And we know how pure our intellects are. But what happens is, when there is a trickle from that purifying river into the stream of our own intellects, what happens is slowly that Shivanandalahari makes its way into our heart, and when that happens, Dishanti samsara brahmana paritapopashamanam. The worldly difficulties, the delusions of this worldly life, and the agony of wandering in this Janana Marana Chakra, circle of birth and death, that is completely destroyed. And that purifying Shivanandalahari continues to stay in our hearts. We always say that Shravana purifies our heart and it gives us Chitta Shuddhi, but how exactly does that work? Even in this shloka, what Acharya ultimately is trying to say is, keep listening to the kathas and gunas of Bhagavan, keep doing Shravana, and eventually through the ear, Bhagavan will enter your heart and he will become present in your heart. And once there is Bhagavan's presence within your heart, then automatically you will be purified. Because all of us have this misconception that first let me become pure, then Bhagavan will come. No, if you wait for that, it's going to take a very long time. One Swami gives this example. He says, I am cold, Bhagavan is like fire. So you're saying, I am cold, Bhagavan is hot, so let me first heat myself up and then make contact with Bhagavan. But the truth is, the moment you go near Bhagavan, the moment you come in contact with the presence of Bhagavan, then automatically the cold is mitigated. Like that, the moment you start hearing the divine leelas of Bhagavan, then automatically the impurities in your heart will be destroyed. And when we use the word chitta shuddhi, chitta essentially means memory. We generally use it to say purity of mind, purity of heart, but specifically when we look at the definition, chitta means memory. Now, what does the memory really do? Let's take one simple decision that we have to take. We can, through this example, see how our memory influences the way we think. So let's say you have to decide what to cook for dinner. Then what do? First, you come up with a lot of options. Based on your memory, based on what you know to cook, you will think, okay, I can make chapati, I can make idli, dosa, upma, pongal, whatever. All these options come within our minds. Then what do? We again go back into the memory and we start weighing the pros and cons. Okay, if I need to make chapati, there needs to be atta at home. Is there enough atta? If I need to make upma, there has to be rava at home. Is there enough rava? So we start thinking, what vegetables do I have? What ingredients do I have? And based on this, we try to arrive at a conclusion on what to cook. One more point we have to consider is who all are at home. Because last time I made upma, someone in my family was not very happy about it. And if that person is already in a bad mood today, then it's probably not the best idea to make upma today. Then we also look into our memory to see what have I made over the past week. If over the past week I made chapatis a lot of times and I also realize there is idli batter, then okay, then for a change today we can make idli. So every decision that we take, this is such a seemingly simple decision. Every decision that we take is based on the memory. Based on the storehouse of memory, we arrive at conclusions, we consider, we weigh the pros and cons, and ultimately take decisions. That's why thoughts are called as chitta vrittis. So there is a ocean of memory. From there, a wave arises. That becomes the chitta vritti. A movement in the memory is what thought is. Or in another way, if we have to look at it, let's say there is a basket full of flowers. Then there is a fragrance above that basket full of flowers. So the basket represents the memory and the fragrance represents the thoughts in our mind. So how does doing Shravana help us achieve peace of mind? It is simply the fact that we have filled this basket called our memory with all kinds of nonsense. We watch thriller movies, we watch action movies, and then we wonder why we don't get sleep at night. We watch serials about how the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law are always fighting, and then we wonder why there's no peace in our family. We watch movies about how brothers kill each other, and then we wonder why we don't have a good relationship with the people around us. We watch tragedies, and then we wonder why even the smallest inconvenience in our life upsets us so much. It's because we have filled our minds with all of this kind of nonsense. The fragrance that it emits, or in our case, the stench that is coming out of it, is what we experience as thoughts in the mind. So now what do we need to do? We have to start filling good thoughts into our minds. A lot of us use a shortcut, try to use a shortcut which is to distract the mind. This is like there is a bowl in your room and it has all kinds of garbage, so there's a stench in your room. What do? We just try to put room freshener and solve the problem. Most people are so scared of being alone with their thoughts. They need somebody's company because it is so scary to them to be alone with their own thoughts. A lot of people cannot sleep at night because of the thoughts they have. So why are we so scared of our own company? It is because of how unintelligently we have been managing our memory. We have been filling our memory with the wrong kinds of things, and as a result, now the whatever is coming as a movement of that memory, the thoughts that are being produced as a result of this memory are totally chaotic. And when that happens, again we try to distract ourselves. It's like applying or using a room freshener. But what is the real thing that you need to do? You need to clear out that garbage. But again, cleaning the mind is not as simple as clearing out garbage, because you can't just choose to delete a particular memory. All the movies that we have watched, it is there in our minds. The only way to delete those memories is one, we should stop thinking about them. We should stop engaging in that kind of behavior going forward. So the less and less you think about it, the memory starts to weaken. And on the other hand, fill your head with stories from the Puranas, with shlokas, with Bhagavad Gita, with Shivanandalahari, with all of these divine ideas, so that slowly, even though there is garbage at the bottom of the vessel, at least the top layer is being filled with flowers. So slowly there's a mixed fragrance that starts to come. That's why a lot of Adhyatma sadhakas notice that sometimes their mind is very peaceful and calm because of all the japa that they're doing, but sometimes again their old behaviors start to repeat. That's because your mind is not fully pure yet. Yes, you have added the flowers of Bhagavan Nama and Bhagavad Katha Shravana, but the old garbage is still there. And slowly over time, as we listen only to Bhagavan Nama and Bhagavad Kathas, then slowly this purification starts to happen. And once our mind is filled with the thoughts of Bhagavan and nothing apart from the thoughts of Bhagavan, then what do we experience? We experience bliss in our hearts and nothing else. So, if you have to put it very simply, the food that we consume essentially becomes this body. All the food that we eat, based on the quality of the food, this physical body takes shape. If you eat a lot of the wrong kinds of food or unhealthy food, that effect will be seen on the body. Similarly, the mind is a result of all the thoughts that you put into it. Whatever you consume through the sense organs. Acharya says in one place in the Gita Bhashyam, Akhriyate iti aharaha shabdadi vishaya vijnanam. Only the food that you eat is not ahara. What you see with your eyes is ahara. What you hear with your ears is ahara. What you smell with your nose is ahara. And this is the food that ultimately becomes your mind. That is, it becomes your memory, and from the memory, it bubbles up as the thoughts in your mind. So, if you want peace in life, if you want happiness and permanent joy in life, you have to stop filling your head with the kind of thoughts that are opposed to this. You cannot fill your head with the wrong kind of thoughts and then expect peace and happiness. And what kind of thoughts specifically? Is it enough if you feel good worldly thoughts? That might help. But again, the world itself is anitya. It is not permanent. It is temporary. So if you are okay with temporary happiness, then you can fill your head with good ideals in the world itself. But the problem there is, one day that world will also disappear. Those ideals or those memories from the world with which you filled your system, those will turn the other way. Those will turn upside down. So then you will be left without a stronghold. So fill your brain with the thoughts of that divine entity who is always of the nature of bliss. We say Bhagavan is Satchidananda. He is of the nature of existence, he is of the nature of consciousness, and he is of the nature of bliss. So he is permanently available in the form of bliss. There is nothing in the world that can give you permanent bliss, but Bhagavan is of the nature of permanent bliss. And once we meditate on him for long enough to the point that we consecrate him in our hearts, then we will also realize that that bliss is right within our hearts. And instead of spending our time thinking about this Bhagavan who is of the nature of bliss, if we wasted thinking of the world which is of the nature of sorrow, then we can't complain that we experience sorrow. In one place in the Gita, Bhagavan says, Anityam asukam lokam imam prapya bhajasvamam. He has declared that this loka, this samsara, is not permanent and it does not give you the happiness that you're looking for. In another place in the Gita, Bhagavan says, Dukkhalayam Ashashvatam. The name he gives for samsara is that it is an impermanent house of misery. So, do you want to waste your time thinking and thinking about this impermanent house of misery, or do you want to spend your time meditating on that Parameshwara who is of the nature of bliss? That is the real question, and that difference is what will decide whether or not we achieve peace in our lives. We'll continue this in the next satsanga. Shiva Shiva.